It's only week 3, but feels like a pretty important week for a few teams. Let's break it all down with our week 3 game previews. It is week 3 in the NFL. Let's get to it. We will start with the Vegas Raiders taking on the Washington Commanders. Washington is favored by 3.5 points in this game, with the total sitting at 44.5. I think this is going to be an interesting test for the Raiders, who defensively looked pretty good in week 1 against the New England Patriots, and defensively looked pretty not good in week 2 against the Los Angeles Chargers. And Washington is a defense that I'm still kind of on the fence about. I think that there are some talented pieces, but they're a little on the old side. I think they are very well coached, but I do think that they are ready for a bit of a fall off. And you look at the two opponents that they have had, and we've had this with a few ones, when we talked about it in the Thursday preview with Buffalo against Miami. This is a team that in week 1 faced the Giants, who we don't think are very good. And in week 2 faced the Packers, who we think are very good. So they don't have that kind of middle ground. And I would suggest that there's some mid in the Raider offense. So I think this will be a good test to see where Washington's defense is at. And much like what we talked about with Buffalo, this isn't going to tell us if Washington's defense is elite, but this is going to be a gigantic red flag if it's a problem in this matchup. So this is a bit of a litmus test to see where Washington's defense is at. But I think what this game really does come down to is the Raiders' problems on the corner. And we're going to talk about this a lot this season, but they just don't cover very well. And you saw that come back to bite them in week 2 against an actually good receiving core with the LA Chargers. So I would imagine Deebo Samuel has a pretty solid game here. I think Terry McLaurin is pretty strong as well. And then for the Raiders, again, offensively, I just don't think they are going to be able to have a ton of firepower against a Washington defense that I still think is pretty solid. I think this is going to be a game where we feel okay about Washington's defense. And so I said this before, but missed last week because of some travel issues, and the declaration of this show was a pick per game. And so to keep the math working, we're going to do 2 picks this week. And so my picks here are Washington minus 3.5. I think their offense is going to be able to put up enough with the issues that the Raiders have in coverage that they're going to be able to get the job done and win this one by more than 4. But I do think the under hits here. I think Vegas has some trouble scoring, and I think that they're going to be able to limit Washington enough, probably more specifically in the run game, to keep this one under that total of 44.5. As far as the fantasy football aspect of it is concerned, I think that, obviously, for Washington, we're starting Jaden Daniels. And like I said, I think this is a game where you can start Deebo Samuel and the pass catchers for Washington and feel okay about it. I'm pretty sure Ertz is healthy. The Raiders have struggled against tight ends for 25 years. So Ertz would be a pretty good play for you this week as well. The running backs, I'm a little iffy on still, with Krosky Merritt and with Rodriguez. I think Vegas has enough on the interior that they're going to be pretty good against the run this season, so that is probably one where I think you have some better options. As far as the Raiders go, it's probably a no-go for me with Geno Smith this week. Genty, I'm still rolling with it. I can't imagine you have 2 to 3 better options at running back at this point in the season than Ashton Genty, so I think you kind of got to roll with it. Brock Bowers is an automatic one. Jacoby Myers is a fine wide receiver 2, 3, flex, whatever your league would suggest. I think he's going to be okay, but not a blow-away week for him or anything along those lines. So if you have any fantasy football questions, let me know in the chat, or if you're watching after, in the comments below. But those are my thoughts coming out of this game with the Raiders taking on the Washington Commanders. We have Sam on YouTube. Do I trade Jacoby Myers and Terry McLaurin for Igbuka and Nick Chubb? I think so. Yeah, I probably would do that. I understand the Nick Chubb of it all throws it off because that offense just has been bad, and the offensive line is a problem, which directly affects the running back who has to run behind that offensive line. But Igbuka, I think, is legitimately turning into a very, very solid option in the Tampa Bay passing attack. And Jacoby Myers, there could be a point very soon where Myers is the third option on his team, and Terry McLaurin, I always have concerns about guys who miss training camp and how that all kind of fits in with them in the offense. So I would make that trade. Yes, I would trade Jacoby Myers and Terry McLaurin away for Igbuka and Nick Chubb. Purple Ninja, who had asked earlier about Genti Shakir and JMO, also saying, my other two running backs are Etienne and Kamara. Surely they will do better than Genti, right? And then saying that he subscribed. I think Kamara, man, that matchup against Seattle is going to be really, really tough. Like, I worry that Seattle just blows them out. And defensively, like Kamara, it's like 17 carries for 55 yards, right? Like, I worry that Seattle's going to do that to the New Orleans offense. But, I mean, Washington could do the same thing to the Raiders and Genti. And then ETN, Jacksonville against Houston. Again, that's a good defense. So, all your running backs are facing good defenses this week. But you can make a very strong case, yes, that ETN and Kamara would do better than Genti this week. So, yeah, I think that is probably very, very fair. Up next, it is the Indianapolis Colts facing the Tennessee Titans. Colts favored by 4.5 with the total sitting at 43.5. For Indianapolis, the offense has been fantastic in the first couple of weeks of the season, and we probably didn't think this coming in, but this is going to be one of the tougher tests that the Colts face so far this year on defense. Now, I think Denver's defense is better than Tennessee's, so maybe this is overdoing that a touch, but I think the Tennessee defense is pretty strong. They just altered the contract a little bit with Simmons on their front line. I think he is a very, very solid kind of foundational piece on that defense. Man, I'm so into NHL stuff right now. I almost said on that blue line. But on the defensive line, he's a very, very solid piece that is just kind of foundational there. But I think what we are seeing with Indy is they actually have quite a few weapons that Daniel Jones is able to spread the ball around to. So I think Indy offensively is going to be fine. I think this is another one where their defense shines. They showed that defensively they can put a bit of pressure on quarterbacks in a couple of weeks. Like Tua had all kinds of problems with them in week 1, and then Bo Nix was running around a lot in week number 2. The big thing here for the Titans is trying to get that run game going. The Colts have done a pretty good job in the first couple of weeks, at least just eye test wise, of taking the run away from their two opponents and putting that pressure on the quarterback and trying to make this, in this case, it would be make Cam Ward beat you, which is exactly the defensive style that's going to give Tennessee problems here early in the season. So I like the Colts. I just think they have an edge right now, and I think 4.5 is... I was expecting this to be actually a real overreaction, and just going into the week, I was expecting to take Tennessee to cover and keep this game close, but 4.5 seems very reasonable to me, so I like the I like the Indianapolis Colts in this one, minus 4.5, and again, because I think their defense is going to be able to limit what Tennessee does on offense, the Titans have played 2 pretty lower scoring games so far this year, so I think this one goes under at 43.5. as well. On the fantasy football side of it, I don't know how many Titans you're rolling with anyway. Pollard, it could be a bit of a tougher week for Tony Pollard this week, but again, if it depends on who you have, but I would try to not with Pollard this week at running back. Ridley gets a lot of the volume there. They're just not passing it a ton in Tennessee at this point, but Ridley is still a pretty good option, but not one, again, that is a must start. I don't think there's any must starts on Tennessee right now. On the Colts side of it, obviously, like, Taylor is a must start every week. Warren is a must start every week as well. And then I think you feel pretty okay about where you're at with a Pittman getting in the lineup and those sorts of guys. Daniel Jones, I would imagine you get some better options at quarterback here this week. But those are the gambling and fantasy football thoughts on the Colts against the Tennessee Titans. Up next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers facing the New England Patriots. It is one of the closer ones of the week, with the Steelers favored by 1.5 and the total sitting at 44.5. These are two teams that I'm not particularly high on, and I think a pretty interesting matchup here, but it could be kind of like what we talked about with the Raiders against the Patriots coming out of week 1, where it's like, I don't know what to make of this team because I don't know what to make of the other team, so I don't know what you are showing me. For the Steelers on offense, they put up pretty good numbers in week 1 against a defense that I thought would be improved on the New York Jets side. But then in week 2, they had some pretty obvious struggles against the Seattle Seahawks. I think this Patriots defense is closer to Seattle than it is to the Jets right now. I know still some players banged up, still some players that they are trying to work back into the lineup, but it's still a pretty solid defense that I think could give the Pittsburgh Steelers some troubles. And then for the Patriots, on offense, I don't know how many playmakers they actually have right now. I like that Ramondre is showing that he still has a bit of jump after a lot of people wrote him off with Travion Henderson doing big things in the preseason, but they just don't have a lot of playmakers on the offensive side. This is going to be a good test for their offensive line with TJ Watt and the pressure that he can bring. But the Steelers' defense has kind of been picked apart so far this season. So I think this could be a relatively decent day for New England on offense. And so looking at the options that we have, I'm going to go New England plus 1.5. I think the Patriots win this game outright. So I will gladly take a 1.5 and just give myself at least a little bit of wiggle room on that one. And then for this one, I'm going to go team total team total under 24 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm going Steelers under 24 points and Patriots plus 1.5. I think Aaron Rodgers and company have another difficult day with New England. Looking at this from a fantasy football standpoint, there's not a lot I'm trusting in this game. For the Patriots, like Ramondre, I think has shown that he's someone that you can trust. I think Henderson, you can probably wait on until he has a bit of a breakout game. Diggs probably has some flex appeal. Hilarious pun there. And like Drake May if you're desperate. But on the Pittsburgh side, Rodgers is a no. Warren probably. I think Jalen Warren has probably a pretty good game in this spot. But then DK, it would be tough to imagine you have more good options than him at wide receiver to the point where he's not starting in your lineup. But any of the other weapons, like whether it's the tight ends or like Calvin Austin or anything like that, probably not. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of fantasy value in this game for me. So those are the thoughts there on the Steelers and the New England Patriots. Crimney on Twitch. Do I take Hurts and Genty for Jalen Warren and Garrett Wilson? Ooh. Okay. So in this, you have Warren and Garrett Wilson. I kind of think no. I don't know how desperate we are at quarterback, but Garrett Wilson, even with the injury at quarterback, Tyrod Taylor can still get the ball to a good receiver. And that is, in fact, what Garrett Wilson is, a good receiver. Jalen Warren, while I am not high on the quarterback that is going to be handing him the ball, he has shown that he is still an explosive player at running back. And the Caleb Johnson concern hasn't been there so far. Warren's looked great. Genty, I think, is going to come around. Hurts is an automatic lock touchdown every week with the tush push and is their best option running the ball on third down. But I think with the talent that you have in Wilson and Warren, I would leave that be at this particular time. Crimney, I also have Bucky, Chase, and Brown and Pollard, not even starting Wilson. Okay, well that, first of all, good for you. That's great. I have Rodgers starting because of Burrow and Purdy injury. Okay. With some more context, I see where we're coming from right now. If we're not starting Wilson, and we already have Chase Brown and Pollard as our running backs, so we are insulated from what we are going to be doing anyway, then yes. And we need quarterback help. With that context in mind, 100% do that trade. Like I said, I like Wilson a lot. I like Warren a lot. But if we need quarterbacks, and you do, this makes a ton of sense. And Genty, I think, progresses into a good running back as the year goes on. So while just on the surface, I don't like it, in your scenario, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it works. So a solid trade that we have found there. Crimney, excellent work. Jets taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks favored by 6.5 points with a total sitting at 43.5. Tampa Bay, not many people thinking this is going to be the same dramatics needed as the first couple of weeks as they go up against Tyrod Taylor and the New York Jets. I think that this is going to be a very good day for Tampa Bay. The Jets have struggled in the pass defense so far this year, and with Taylor out there, I don't know how much complementary football they are going to be playing. So I think the Buccaneers are in for a pretty good day. I think Baker has really shown that he is still that dude. Ibuka has really impressed in the first couple of weeks. Mike Evans is still solid. Like, they just have good pieces all around. They did get another injury on the offensive line this week, so that's something to keep in mind. But you feel pretty good about them on offense. And then when the Jets have the ball, it's Tyrod Taylor. Like, he's going to try to make it so that everything is moving on time. I think it's going to be a lot of the stars. Like, I think it's going to be a lot of Wilson. Breece Hall is going to be pretty important in this game. I would imagine there are some 2 running back sets with Allen and with Breece Hall. Just a quick aside, I don't know why teams don't do that more. When you look at the Jets and the options they have, like, the second and third best offensive players that they have are their 2 running backs. So put them both out there more. I don't know why you have one of your top 3 offensive weapons on the bench on a week in, week out basis, but that's neither here nor there. Just looking at this feels like a mismatch that it shows in the odds. So I don't think we have to spend a whole lot of time on this from a game breakdown standpoint. Tampa Bay's better all over the place. I love the Bucs here, -6.5. And our second play is Baker, over 249 yards through the air. From a fantasy football standpoint in this one, I think I've made it pretty clear. We're starting our Bucs this week, right? Baker feels like a very good start. Obviously, like, Ibuka at this point is just locked in your lineup, and Evans probably has to be as well. I think you can trust the tight end, Otton, and we're feeling pretty good about both running backs at this point. This feels like a very good game for Tampa Bay to be able to strike against the New York Jets. On the Jets side, Wilson and Hall at this point are starts every week, and at this point, no one else in that lineup is a start. So, again, this one, pretty easy one to break down. The Bucs really liking that one here this week. Zuxley again, you think start Dak or Baker? Good grief, it's like picking between my 2 favorite kids right now, because I think Baker has a huge week against the Jets, but I think Dak has a monster game this week. So I would go Dak there. I think that Chicago game is going to be another one of first stop wins. I think it's going to be a shootout out there in Chicago this week with the Cowboys and the Bears. So I like Dak in that spot there, Zuxley. That would be the quarterback that I would choose in the matchup that you have. So again, keep the fantasy football questions going, but let's get back to the game previews. LA Rams taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are favored by 3.5 points. Totals at 44.5. The Rams are a team that I was not high on going into the season because of the back issues that Matthew Stafford was dealing with in training camp. But you watch this for the first couple of weeks, that defense is legit. It is a very, very good squad. We saw this young defense starting to come together last year, and now they are really putting it together in the first couple of weeks this season. Now, they've done that against a bad offensive line with the Houston Texans and a relatively bad football team in the Tennessee Titans. I think they're going to be better than what they're at right now, but at this point, that's not a great team that they are playing over there. So I like that. I like how that defense has played, but now they're going up against a juggernaut in this Philadelphia Eagles team. And I get they haven't put up major points in the first couple of weeks, but you look at week 1, they put up points on every possession until there was an hour and a half delay, and then they were able to kind of just dribble the air out of the ball. And in week number 2, they're going up against a Kansas City team who we love to criticize, but that's an elite championship level defense. It almost single-handedly took the Kansas City Chiefs to a championship last year, right? So I do think that there is more to come for this offense, and that's why I say it's a juggernaut here against the Rams. So I'm really interested in the matchup on that side of the ball with how the Rams defense can handle things against Philadelphia. I'm endlessly fascinated by this game just in general to kind of see where the Rams are at. When the Rams have the ball on offense, you know what you're getting. Devontae Adams has been solid so far. Puka's been great. Kyron Williams is awesome, but it's one of the most talented defenses in the NFL. And they had Mahomes on the run and were able to shut down that Kansas City run game last week. This is a better offensive line that they'll be facing. So I think, honestly, for where all the teams are at this point, this feels like the toughest test the Philadelphia Eagles have had so far, just in a styles make fights sort of a way. But until otherwise shown, we're going Philadelphia in these spots. We're going Eagles -3.5, and I'm also going to go on the under. I like both of these defenses, so I think it is yet another low-scoring game for the Philadelphia Eagles. From a fantasy standpoint, I mean, we're starting our studs, and I do still include A.J. Brown in our studs. So Brown, Smith, Barkley, we're starting Hurts. I mean, it feels like a guaranteed touchdown every week, and then some pretty good run yards, as that's their key play on 3rd and medium right now. And then on the Rams side, Stafford, we probably have a better option than Stafford to go with this week, so that's probably a no for me on that. Kyron Williams, you have to. Nakua, you have to. Adams, you have to. And that's basically it on that side. But a very fascinating game in the early slate on Sunday. Mr. God of COD on Twitch asking, Adams for Kamara. I'm assuming this is Devontae Adams for Alvin Kamara. The Kamara one, I think I got that. But if I'm wrong, let me know on that, God of COD, since we're going with government names. I think like it is kind of a cop-out in that it depends on your roster. Like if we're set at wide receiver and need a running back, like if we had Aaron Jones and he is out, then yeah, that is 100% a trade I make all the time. If we're just looking to make a trade, either way, I think it's fine. Like I think either side of that, if you need a wide receiver, Adams is great. If you need a running back, probably don't watch the Saints game this week, but Kamara's good. He's going to have a bit of a difficult time against Seattle, but I think overall he is still a solid, very good football player, even if he is on an atrociously awful offensive team. So if you need a running back, I don't think that is out of whack value even a little bit. I don't think you have to run and dive and make that trade or anything, but I like it. I think if you want to add an Alvin Kamara, by all means, add an Alvin Kamara. Keep the questions coming. We are going to continue the game previews here as we roll through every game on the NFL schedule here on the stream. Thank you guys so much for asking all the questions. By the way, if you want all of this wherever you go, we're available in podcast form as well. Just search Couch Potato Diary wherever you get your podcasts, including on Spotify as well as on Apple. So it's not just on the streams, but if you want fantasy football advice, we're talking fantasy football every day throughout the week. Lock in on the podcast. Engineer, I see the question there in the chat. I will get to that in a second, but want to continue with the game previews that we got going on right now. Not the most exciting of games, but still want to get to it anyway. Next up, it is Atlanta taking on Carolina. The Falcons favored by 5.5 with the total at 44.5. Carolina's not a good football team is the best way I can kind of sum this up. They have looked pretty mediocre in 2 games against teams that also seem pretty mediocre in Jacksonville and Arizona. The big problem is on the offensive line, and we saw last week Atlanta and what they did to the offensive front of Minnesota. I think this is going to be a big problem again for Carolina. And I get they put on a big push for the end of that game, but Bryce Young looked bad. He looked really bad when that game was, at any moment that game was in doubt, Bryce Young sucked. And then in the middle part, when Arizona was like, defense optional, then Bryce Young is balling everywhere. So I guess you could hope for some garbage time here. But in terms of point spread, I think Atlanta wrecks them. And then defensively, Carolina did not put up a whole lot of resistance against Arizona, again, until the Cardinals kind of took their foot off the gas. And they had some problems with Jacksonville in week number 1. So I think Atlanta feasts here. I think Atlanta is a significantly better football team right now. So my pick for this one is Atlanta -5.5. And the other one, since I kind of explained it before, but we got some people popping in, I do a pick per game every week on the NFL thing, but had some travel issues last week, so I couldn't. So we're doubling up on the picks this week. I'm going Bryce Young over half an interception in this game as well. From a fantasy standpoint, I think I made it pretty clear. We're starting our Falcons this week. The Falcons defense was the waiver wire pickup of the week. Michael Penix Jr., I think we can roll with that. We said on a few guys here, you know what? I think there's better quarterback options out there. Michael Penix was the figure I had in my mind when I said that. You can roll with him. Hot take of the week. You can start Bijan Robinson. But honestly, I think Tyler Algier has a good opportunity to put up some fantasy points in this one as well. And any pass catcher you got on the Falcons, just throw them in there and roll with it. For Carolina, Hubbard is kind of the only auto play right now. Bryce Young is a very hard no at this particular time. And Teteroa McMillan, it would be tough for you to have enough options ahead of him that you're not starting him, but it's not an automatic that we're rolling with him as a starter here. And if you want home run swings, I guess Xavier Legette, but I don't think this is going to be a very strong game for Carolina this week, whereas I think the Falcons are going to be able to feast. We have a couple more questions for fantasy football in the chat on YouTube. Apologies if I screw this up. Ayele Giza, sorry. There's no way I said any of that right. I might have got every syllable of that wrong. But either way, on YouTube asking, would you trade Ramondre Stevenson and T-Mac for CeeDee Lamb? I'm assuming T-Mac here is Teteroa McMillan, and I would do that. Yes. CeeDee Lamb is legit. And I think that he is almost offense proof, right? Like, even when Dak Prescott goes down with an injury, CeeDee Lamb is still CeeDee Lamb. He is still an incredibly talented wide receiver. And I think that this game upcoming is going to be another wild shootout. I like Ramondre, and I think that he is way more talented than people were giving him credit for. And I think Teteroa McMillan and that offense is going to get a little bit better as the year goes on. But Stevenson's going to start losing opportunities at some point here. Like I've been preaching patience on the young running backs, which does mean that I think Stevenson's time could be winding down at some point in that backfield. So some concerns about that. And Teteroa McMillan, I just don't think that offense is going to be fantastic all season long. They're going to have some problems with, clearly the offensive line can't do anything. And Bryce Young is back to looking like a liability. So unless you get just a whack load of garbage time, I don't think it's going to be that great. So definitely some concerns there. I would go CeeDee. And I see here already have Dak and Pickens on the squad. That wouldn't necessarily hinder me. You have an opportunity to get a high-level player. If you have to trade Pickens later, trade Pickens later. But to get a player who is a first-round pick for two players who weren't, I think you have to lock that in 100%. Marky219 in the Twitch chat. I got a trade for me, giving up Drake London for getting Troy Franklin and David Montgomery. Thoughts? My other wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, Downs, Quentin Johnston, Travis Hunter, and DJ Moore. My running backs are Genty, Chase Brown, Charbonnet, and Mixon, who is out. I don't think I would do that one, Marky219. I think London, he is a big part of an offense that looks like it's going to be pretty good. Like Michael Penix Jr. looks like he's going to be solid enough that it's going to be able to keep Drake London in as a viable option. Where Troy Franklin is just kind of one of the dudes in Denver, and David Montgomery, I'm looking at a running back list here right now, and I can understand some concerns about Genty, but when everyone's going, Montgomery would be your fourth best running back, and that's only because Joe Mixon is out, and then he'd be your fifth. So I don't think we need to be making this trade right now. I understand, we have a relatively decent wide receiver room, but I think right now our strength is running back. So we don't need to add anything more to that. If you wanted to do it, but then trade Brown and Charbonnet for something at wide receiver, then maybe, but now we're just getting busy for busy's sake. I think the play would be keeping Drake London on your team. I don't think we need to mess with the depth there right now. We got a pretty good squad everywhere else. Marky219 also saying, do I pick up Tyler Algier for any of the players I mentioned in the past? Oh, boy. In theory, when you said, do I pick up Algier? My first thought was, yes, absolutely. And then looking at the roster, probably not. I think, like Hunter, like I said, I think he's going to get more and more in that offense as the year goes on. Quentin Johnston, if he can hold on to footballs, dude's going to be great. And so far, he's catching them. Downs has an opportunity in an offense that looks significantly better than we thought it was going to be. And Diggs is the best pass catching option on the Patriots, I guess, aside from Ramondre coming out of the backfield. But I don't know if we're dropping anyone for Algier. But man, Algier just sitting there feels like a waste. So honestly, like you were about to make a 1-for-2 trade. See if you can quickly get a 2-for-1 deal out there and then be able to pick up Algier. Like if we could combine again, like a Brown and a Charbonnet for someone and then go out and pick Algier. We got a solid running back room on our hands. But just a thought there. But yeah, keep the questions coming. This has been a whole lot of fun chatting with you guys here today. Let's continue on in what looked like a really intriguing quarterback battle. Now looks like a really bad quarterback battle with Cincinnati taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Injuries, the main story with the Vikings and the Bengals. Minnesota favored by 2.5 points in this game with the total sitting at 41.5. This is a very awkward game. We are looking at two backup quarterbacks on two teams that have some incredibly talented pieces. When Minnesota has the ball, Carson Wentz, as part of this offense, like there is a part of me that is just wondering, O'Connell got a lot out of Sam Darnold a year ago. And if we had come into this season with Wentz as the no doubt number one starter in Minnesota, would we be saying like, hey, Sam Darnold vibes from a couple years ago? Before that, it was Baker Mayfield. Before that, it was Geno Smith. I might have my order mixed up on those two, but you remember what I'm saying anyway. Like, I wonder if Carson Wentz with this offense, like I'm just going to assume that Kevin O'Connell can get a lot out of a human being who has played the sport before. So I think Wentz is going to be fine in this matchup. I was big on Minnesota throughout the year, throughout the preseason leading up to the year, because I like the rest of the roster that they had around JJ McCarthy. And so, again, I still think it's a good roster for Minnesota going into this game against the Bengals. I still think the offensive line is all right, even though they had some troubles last week. Mason's a strong running back. Jefferson is the best receiver in football, and I know who he's playing against this week. But still, I still think Hawkinson has a lot more to show with what he can do at tight end. And then with Addison coming back, not this week, that doesn't help. But Naylor is a fine wide receiver 2 option, but he's a lot better as a number 3. And then you see he's going up against the Cincinnati defense. That sucks. It's not good. It's not a good defense at all. So I like Minnesota here because, like, with Browning, I don't think he's all that great. And I think the Minnesota defense is actually really good. I know that some troubles against Atlanta there as that game went on. They were just on the field a ton and really forced a boatload of field goals until Atlanta's able to strike for a touchdown at the end of that game. So I think this defense causes some problems for Browning and the Bengals offense this week. So I like Minnesota here to cover 2.5 points. Now, there's a limit to it. I think we're going under on this one as well at 41.5. From a fantasy football standpoint, I really do like looking at, obviously, like, I like Jefferson, big note, but the way I was going there is Mason. I like the opportunity that he has. I think he's a really strong running back, and like just seeing quite a few people putting him out there this week, he's got the backfield for 4 weeks. Think about that. He's got a great setup right now in Minnesota. I think he's going to be a real big fantasy player going forward with this team. And so I like him this week. I'm still holding out hope that Hawkinson has a big week here, as well as the pass catching option aside from Jefferson with Minnesota. It would be a ballsy ass move to put Carson Wentz in. And look, I did a DraftKings lineup before. I thought about it. A nice little Wentz Jefferson stack, and that might still be just one you kind of throw it out in a tournament or whatever. It's tempting. I have no respect for Cincinnati's defense. That's where this is coming from. So I like a lot of the options for Minnesota. On the Bengals side, we're starting everyone. Not Browning, but we're starting Brown. We're starting Chase. We're starting Higgins. We're probably leaving the tight ends alone. So, the Bengals, the big options that are available to you to start, we're still rolling with and still feeling pretty comfortable there. But it's going to be an interesting game to kind of see how both these teams are at with the injuries. Before we get into more of the games, we have Jacob Diaz on YouTube asking, trade James Cook for, it says Jettas. Is that Genty, maybe? But either way, looking at James Cook's fantasy value going into the Thursday night game, I think that James Cook is someone who could still have, or not could still, is going to have a very good year. That this Buffalo offense is obviously very effective again. And while I do think there are breakouts coming for Keon Coleman and for Dalton Kincaid, and I think we've been paid off in that in the first couple of weeks, I still think when they get to the goal line, James Cook is the option. So depending on what Jettas is there, Jacob, sorry, Justin Jefferson. Okay. That is interesting because obviously Jefferson is going to have Carson Wentz throwing him the football for the next couple of weeks. That being said, he had a huge season with Sam Darnold throwing him the football. So, man, that is a very good question, Jacob Diaz. I would still say yes to trading James Cook for Justin Jefferson. I think Jefferson's the best receiver in football. And I think to a certain degree, he is quarterback proof. He wouldn't do well if I was throwing him the football, but we've seen this offense get a lot out of middle of the road quarterbacks, which is where Carson Wentz has a full property set up, right? So I think this is a pretty solid play still for Justin Jefferson. And when you look at it, they are going to still be able to run the ball with Mason. And you do still have to worry about, I know he hasn't been great for fantasy, but you still have to worry about Hawkinson. And in a couple of weeks, you're going to have to worry about Addison as well. So you're not just going to be able to just focus on Jefferson. Not like they're going to say, oh my heavens, we can't focus on Jefferson because Jordan Mason's in the backfield. But you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to put 10 guys on Jefferson and just be like, okay, someone else beat us. They're going to have to at least play regular defenses against this guy. And so that's why I think that there is a lot that you can feel good about with that. Looking at Jacob Diaz here again, I have Kamara and Jalen Warren right now, T. Higgins, Neighbors, and Devontae Smith with Josh Allen as my quarterback. It does leave us a little bit lacking at running back, Kamara and Warren are both kind of running back twos, but then you could make the case you have 3 wide receiver ones, right? With Higgins, Neighbors, and Jefferson. So yes, I would say you can make that deal and feel pretty good about it right now. Let's go back into the chat as we have a fantasy question coming from the YouTube side. Super C and B Challengers asking, just traded away Breece Hall to get Chase Brown in PPR. Thoughts? I think Brown's going to see a volume uptick in the passing game. I do like Breece Hall quite a bit. I just think in general, people have kind of forgotten how talented he is. But I think that's a fine play. Like I said, it's an offensive line that's bad. It is a quarterback who's not good. And so that can lead to a lot of dump offs to the running back. So I can see where the strategy is on that one, and I don't hate it. I think that's a pretty good move there. Super C and B Challengers. I like that one. A pretty good move that you were able to pull off to get the running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Marky219, again, who do you think I should trade as my team is 0-2, or how do you think I should counter that trade, do you think? So again, to recap, it was Drake London for getting Troy Franklin and David Montgomery. London would be one of the things that I would hold on to at this point. I still, like I said, I think like Charbonnet, it would have been a bit easier after week 1, but I still think Charbonnet could have some value out there. Honestly, if we could do like a Chase Brown, Quentin Johnston trade and see if we can upgrade one spot there right now. Like I look at this team that you have here, Marky, and I think Genty is going to progress as the year goes on, but obviously he's not returning the value on whatever you spent for him, whether it was a first round pick or high capital if we're doing an auction or whatever. So obviously like that has been disappointing, but I look at this and I don't think we need more depth. I think we need more game breakers right now. So I would be trying to package a 2 or even 3 for 1 to try to upgrade one of these spots instead of just trying to spread the depth around right now. So Genty, you're not going to get a lot of trade value for at this particular time. Brown, I still think is probably going to have some value. And if you want to give a bit of a sales pitch, just to pitch it as like, what, they're going to have Jake Browning thrown 100 times? No, we need the running back. Bad quarterbacks with bad offensive lines, dump it off to the running back. Chase Brown's that running back. So try to sell it that way. But Brown, Quentin Johnston, and just spam him with that gif of my guy getting open against the Raiders on Monday night. And try to upgrade in that way. I think we need more game breakers. Now, that is just a personal preference of mine. I am very stars and scrubs when it comes to these sorts of things, and I like to get the best player in these deals. So I think right now, our depth is fine. We just need some of those bigger names and some of those bigger players to go out and make some differences for us at this time. We got Marky219. Should I trade for James Cook or someone like that then? Yes, absolutely. When we're looking at like the Brown, Quentin Johnston, that might get us there actually to a James Cook. We'll see. But yeah, like someone in that area for sure. Yeah, like someone who was drafted, like first round would be great, but someone who was drafted like second, third round, somewhere in there to try to get that. Again, get that game-breaking talent going on the roster. That's kind of the neighborhood that we should be looking at right now. 100% there. Marky219, maybe Quentin Johnston and Chase Brown for Odunze and James Cook or something like that. Yeah, I think that is very, very valid to be asking for. I think the world of Odunze and Cook 100%. I love those guys a lot. So if you are able to swoop them up in one move, absolutely 100%. Purple Ninja one more time. Hold off on trading for now. Right now, bench is Genty, Shakir, Devontae, Fannin, Diami Brown, Bateman, and CJ Stroud. Yeah, we're set. We're set pretty well there. Purple Ninja. That's a good squad that we are rolling with at this particular time. So some good days ahead, fantasy football wise, for you. Also, thank you to Marky219 for the follow there on Twitch. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Back with Purple Ninja 1919 on YouTube. I have Baker and Stroud as my quarterbacks with Browning, Wentz, and Penix on waivers. Should I replace Stroud or just keep for now? God, like I understand the thought of dropping CJ Stroud. Like, it would just pain. I think my phone would explode if I dropped Stroud for Wentz. Like, just, I am not criticizing the thought. It is just the principle of it. I have to believe it's going to get better for CJ Stroud. He's so good. Like, he's a talented quarterback. Doesn't have time to show it, but he's a talented quarterback with a legit number one wide receiver to throw the football to. Like, how bad is that offensive line that they can't get anything going? But I do think, like, the matchups have been tough for Houston so far. Very fascinating matchup. We're talking Jacksonville-Houston next. Very fascinating matchup when it comes to Stroud at quarterback against that team in Jacksonville to see where really is this at. But I just think he's too good to drop right now, so I would hold on to him at this particular time, just based on the talent. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, where I post all the videos from the live streams, leave anything in the comments. I get to everything that you guys are asking, so we can keep the conversation going. But right now, let's get the game previews back up and running with the Houston Texans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. It is the team that was the favorite in the AFC South against the team that's supposed to be the favorite in the AFC South after they drafted who was supposed to be a franchise quarterback. It's Trevor Lawrence taking on CJ Stroud with the Texans looking for their first win. Jacksonville favored in this game by 1.5 with a total at 44.5. I think this is where we start to see CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans in a bit of a better light. I don't think it's going to be a dominant game for them by any stretch of the imagination, and I have concerns about what Josh Hines-Allen is going to do against this Texans offensive line, but I still think that Stroud, given the matchups he's had so far this season, has been put in some tough spots. Aside from a couple of good players in the pass rush, which is going to be a problem, I think this is a defense that can be got. So I think CJ Stroud finally starts to show what he can do against this Jacksonville defense. Same thing for Nico Collins and a little bit for Nick Chubb as well. When Jacksonville, though, has the ball, yes, they've looked all right for 2 weeks, but they've looked all right against Carolina, and they've looked all right against Cincinnati. You can say a lot of things about those teams. Great defensively isn't one of them. You can say that about this Texans team. I have said it on any microphone I can. this is a championship level defense that the Texans have. You look at what they did to the Rams in week 1, and then what the Rams did to what is a solid defense in Tennessee in week 2, and you can start to see the differences in these teams. So I like Houston in this spot. I like them plus the 1.5. I would take them straight up as well. And the second pick that I'm doing for this week is Trevor Lawrence, under 240 pass yards. I think that the Texans really do kind of lock things down against Jacksonville this week. So from a fantasy standpoint, we've had a few Stroud questions, and there haven't been many where I've thought, oh, you have to start CJ Stroud in that spot. He is still someone we're keeping on the bench. Chatted with Purple Ninja about that, but this is probably still not a spot where we're starting him at this point. Nick Chubb has had some moments in that backfield, probably a flex option for you this week. Nico Collins is too talented to not start, and everyone else is not good enough to start. On the Jacksonville side, it's a no for most. Lawrence, absolutely not. Tootin, no, we're not Tootin this week. ETN has been good enough that I think we can still roll with him and trust that the volume may get us there. And BTJ is another one that's just too talented to not have in your lineup. Hunter's probably a no. Strange is a no. So it is the Studley studs in this one, and then we are moving on besides that. But at least a couple of options, and I think starting to come out of it will be the Houston Texans in this matchup. Let's take a look at some more of the questions from the chats that we have. We'll start on YouTube with Engineer. Actually, we'll start with Purple Ninja, who said that they subscribed. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that when talking about the podcast there, Purple Ninja. Thank you. Engineer, would y'all trade Brian Robinson Jr. and JMO for Travis Etienne? Oh, boy, that is... Man, I can't think rationally about Jameson Williams. He was one of my breakout players last year. Basically, if during the lead up to the season last year, if you took a drink every time I mentioned Jameson Williams, you have a problem now. So I am very irrational on him. I don't think I would. ETN, right now, he has kind of got that backfield by default. As Tootin continues to grow as a running back and grow in that offense, I think he's going to get more and more looks in the backfield. And honestly, it seems like for now, with Travis Hunter, they want to keep him as kind of a close to the line of scrimmage gadget guy, and that leads to plays out of the backfield a lot. So I could see ETN's volume getting kind of chipped away at as the season goes along. And with Jameson Williams, dude's a beast and is going to be part of an offense that still looks like it's going to be okay in Detroit. And Brian Robinson Jr. is one injury to an injury-prone player away from being one of the most valuable fantasy pieces in the game right now. So I would probably not do that one, Engineer. I would probably say no to that. Thank you to Coco Crispy on Twitch for the follow. Very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. Crispy, are you worried about BTJ? No, I'm not. He was actually someone who I kind of highlighted in the buy low segment that we did earlier this week. I look at the targets. I think that the number, he was 12th in targets among wide receivers and 51st in points. That's going to level, right? That's going to even out. And it's not going to be the targets coming down. He is going to get his looks. He is, I think, easily the best red zone option they have. They don't have that bruising running back that is going to run the ball in the end zone. I don't think Bretton Strange is taking targets away from him as a red zone option. So he's easily the best red zone option that they have, and he's just a very talented football player. So the more this season goes on and the more comfortable Liam Cohen gets in calling plays for this team, the better I think BTJ is going to do. So no, Coco Crispy, I am not concerned about that in any way. Purple Ninja saying, yeah, that's what my gut says. What are your favorite defenses for this week? I really like Atlanta against Carolina. Like I said, one of my best bets for the week is Bryce Young over half an interception. So I think Atlanta is able to get some big numbers this week on the defensive side. I think Green Bay does just awful things to Cleveland, and I think they really limit what the Browns are able to do there. And Seattle, I think, just wrecked shop against New Orleans. Now, a couple of those aren't going to be readily available, but Atlanta was kind of my waiver wire pickup of the week. I think they have a good week here against Carolina. That would be the play that I would make. Purple Ninja one more time. My team is Baker, quarterback, Neighbors, JSN at wide receiver, Kamara, ETN at running back, tight end is Andrews, defense is Chiefs, kicker Fairbairn, and then JMO at the flex. So yeah, we're sitting pretty good in that spot right now. We're looking pretty good with where we are at right now. Purple Ninja, things are rocking pretty well going into this week. Let's go back into the chat with a couple more questions here coming from Marky219. Do I start Henderson, Hunter, Diggs, or Downs at flex in PPR? I think Henderson is probably a wait and see to get that going. I just made it kind of clear I'm not big on Jacksonville this week with Hunter, so I think I think it's Downs, honestly. I think that there's going to be some pretty good opportunities for Downs there with the Colts. Titans are a pretty solid defense, but I still think he is probably the best of the players that are available there, and it's not a defense that is so solid that it's going to cause you major problems. So I would go with Downs there in that spot. I like that move there for your flex this week, Marky219 over on Twitch. Thank you for the follow. Thank you to Softy5555 on Kick for the follow, even if it is one that's probably going to be very, very momentary or brief, shall we say. But also, DJ Moore, that's the play. 100%, that's the play. I get the fantasy production hasn't been there so far, but like I said, it's going to be a shootout in Chicago this week with their game against Dallas. So DJ Moore, I think, is the play. 100%. Love that one there for you, Marky. Thanks for the added context, because I think that helps us out there getting that play in there. Let's get back to the game previews. Green Bay taking on the Cleveland Browns. Packers favored by 7.5 points with a total sitting at 41.5, which is to suggest that the odds makers do not have a lot of confidence in what Cleveland can do on the offensive side of the football. And you know what? I agree with them. I think that this is going to be a very difficult matchup for the Cleveland Browns against what feels like an elite defense on the Green Bay side. I do not have much confidence in what Cleveland is going to be able to do this week. I think there are going to be some big problems there for the Cleveland Browns. I don't know what they do against this team. Like, they're so good defensively. I think Cleveland has some problems. On the offensive side for the Packers, like, obviously Myles Garrett has been getting his in these games this year. He's had a sack in both games. There wasn't a ton available for player props at the time that I was looking to prep for this show, but if we can just any Myles Garrett sack prop, let's just take the over on until proven otherwise. But aside from that, this Green Bay offense, I know that there's the injury. Golden had a couple of shots last week and it just didn't get to him. I think better days are ahead for him. This is a spam it matchup for me. I think Green Bay crushes them this week. So the pick here is Green Bay minus 7.5, and I love Cleveland team under 15.5. From a fantasy standpoint, we're starting our Packers here. Love's a start. Jacobs is a start, obviously. If you just have a GB beside the player, we're throwing that receiver, kicker, defense, everything into the lineup here. Any pass catcher you have for the Packers, we're playing them. Tucker Kraft hurting himself, jumping in the crowd, whatever. Guy's a stud and is going to crush this Cleveland team. This is an all or nothing matchup because it is all on the Green Bay side or nothing on the Cleveland side. Like, I could be wrong. I might be missing something. Maybe Njoku. You know what? Njoku could get something, but that's it. The best we can do on the Cleveland side is lot a great spot for the Cleveland Browns there. It is the Denver Broncos taking on the LA Chargers. We've had a lot of people asking about a lot of things. Not a lot of, I guess Quentin Johnston's come up a fair amount here. Hey, we've had a couple Quentin Johnstons in the chat, but aside from that, not a lot coming up from this game. Broncos taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers favored by 2.5 points. Total at 45.5, which is a little surprising for a couple of teams that would have the identity of strong defensives. Was a weird way of saying that, but it's one of the higher totals of the week. When the Chargers have the ball, there was a lot of concern this year that they would be run heavy because that is the Harbaugh way. But you look late last year, and I wish I would have picked up on this one maybe a little bit more and gone a little bit stronger in predictions and stuff like that. But they realized, hey, our best players are quarterback. So why are we not having it in his hands a lot? And Herbert appears to be having a leveling up type of a season with this Chargers offense. And with that, we are seeing the rising tide lifting the ships with Quentin Johnston, who Marky is asking about in the Twitch chat. And we'll get to that in a second, Marky. With Ladd McConkey, with Keenan Allen. Those guys are all becoming productive players in fantasy football and just in football in general. These guys are stepping up in big time ways. So this is a really effective, really dangerous offense right now. I'm interested to see how Denver responds. I view Denver as a very good defensive team. They shut down the Titans in week number 1, but they had a lot of problems with the Colts in week 2. And while the Colts are just working some kind of someone sold their soul sort of a thing, I do have concerns that Daniel Jones looked that good against this defense. So we're comparing the two. It's like, well, you just got picked apart by that guy, and the one game you look good against was against the rookie quarterback in his first game on the road. I think it's safe to have some questions here. So I like what the Chargers can do on the offensive side. And then defensively, it's such a well-coached, well-orchestrated, I guess, team on defense for the Chargers against Bo Nix, who we've loosened the reins a little bit. And I think he does well with structure. It is like, a lot of people are pretty new to the channel here over the last little bit, but your boy's got an ADD diagnosis. And so Bo Nix is, I'm not saying he has it, but he is like when someone with ADD or ADHD is in school and then they go out into the real world and it's like, well, how can you say you had ADD or ADHD? You had, you're on the honor roll 4 years in high school. No big deal. And it's like, well, yes, high school is structured and we have all of that. And I thrive in structure. That's why we do each of these things as I pretend there's segments here so that I can pretend there's a structure here so my brain doesn't go in 1,000 different directions. But then you get out into the real world and, oh my God, that structure is gone and maybe I thrive in a much more environment. That's the same for Bo Nix. Everything last year, it was structured. It was let's keep the trains going on time. Let's keep both hands, 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Let's keep it between the white lines. He was that, and he thrived in that. Now it's like, you know what? We trust you. Get a little bit crazy. Get some improv going out there. And all of a sudden, he's running all over the place when he doesn't have to. He's throwing and making bad throwing decisions and not making the best, most effective play for this offense. So I think a bit of a lack of structure has affected Bo Nix so far this season. That was a really wide way to get to the fact that I think Bo Nix has been okay this year. And I think it's going to be a tough matchup against this Chargers team. I think with Bo Nix running around, trying to make some plays like that, and Derwin James lurking in the secondary, I think problems could be had here. So I like the Chargers in this spot. I like them -2.5. I do think that the total is a touch high at 45.5 right now. While I do like pieces I like a lot of what the Chargers do offensively, and I like pieces of what Denver can do on offense, I like both these defenses more. So I'm going under that 44.5 for my pick there. From a fantasy standpoint, Marky219 is asking, is Quentin Johnston starting over all the wide receivers I just mentioned this week, by the way? So let's go back to just refresh everyone. So we had Hunter, we had Diggs, we had Downs, and going up further, I know we had a couple more here, or did we? No, we got more from you there. Yeah, there we go. London, also Diggs, Downs, Hunter, DJ Moore. So I would rank the receivers that you have right now, if we're not trading London away. London would be 1. And then, I think Quentin Johnston 2 and DJ Moore 3. That's how I would rank those guys. I think that's where I would put them for this week. And probably season long as well, if that helps at all. But yeah, I would go with those guys. I think Quentin Johnston, drops are the big concern. But it's also something that can get fixed with time. And it's something that I feel like Harbaugh specifically would really want to fix. So I think there could be some breakout value here with Quentin Johnston. So I'm liking my Chargers this week. Even if I think this is a game that goes under the total, I still think this offense is good enough that McConkey, that Quentin Johnston, and that Keenan Allen could get theirs in. Hampton, it's probably a wait and see. I have preached patience with these guys, but I would hope that we have a couple better running back options than Hampton. On the Denver side, I'm not starting Nix this week. Dobbins, we've had him come up in a few questions. I've tried to avoid putting him in lineups. He's looked a touch slower than last year for me. And against this Chargers front, that gives me some concerns there. So that would be an avoid. Cortland Sutton, I think, is probably going to do okay in this matchup, but that might be the only Bronco that I'm really liking in this game. We got another one here coming from Marky on the Twitch chat. Marky219, thoughts on RJ Harvey? Someone in my league dropped him. I think that he has a tough spot among the rookie running backs because he has the coach who is the most stubborn when it comes to trusting the rookies. Like, Genty is going to get his. Hampton's going to be fine. Henderson at least has a little bit more in his way that maybe there's a bit of a pause. But for Harvey, I think the biggest thing is he's got a stubborn-ass coach that is kind of keeping him down a little bit. I don't think Dobbins has done anything to scare us away from RJ Harvey. So if we could go back, boy, I wish that person hadn't put all of those things in about different NFL games. But Marky, where are we here looking at our running backs? I know we got it here somewhere. There we go. Genty, Chase Brown, and Charbonnet. Yeah, I think that's a really strong add to the mix with Harvey. Now, we talked about it a bit before with Algier being available on the waiver wire. I don't know who we're dropping from your group necessarily, but I think RJ Harvey is a very good stash for some future volume because of the ineffectiveness and injury problems that J.K. Dobbins could have. There could be some concern there. So I think RJ Harvey has a pretty good upward mobility to his game right now. So an interesting AFC West test ahead. This next one, a bit less interesting. The New Orleans Saints have been the plucky team so far this season. They take on the Seattle Seahawks. The total is at 41.5, with Seattle favored by 7.5 points. I think Seattle kills them in this game. I think it's a really, really tough game for the Saints. I commend them for hanging around in games against the Cardinals. I was going to say Panthers. Cardinals and San Francisco. But that was the Cardinals. And it was San Francisco with Mac Jones, right? So I think this week you are going to see, while I think Arizona, a couple moves they made, it's an improved defense. I think San Francisco, they lost a lot of pieces. It's still a pretty well-coached defense with some strong pieces on there. Seattle is legitimately a very good defense. And so I think this is a week where Rattler has some problems. And this team, I think this is going to be the one where we realize New Orleans has kind of been just kind of walking that tightrope. This is the week they get knocked off of it. I think Seattle comes in and just destroys them. I don't think New Orleans has enough on their defensive front to really cause the commotion that you need to throw off Seattle. I know they have a couple of pieces, but so did Pittsburgh, and they doubled up on the Steelers last week, right? So I think offensively, they kind of take it to them, but just defensively, honestly, I think Rattler could have under 100 yards passing. Like, that's where I think the lockdown can really come in this matchup. So I love Seattle minus 7.5, and I think New Orleans is under 15.5 right now. That's my other play for this game this week. From a fantasy standpoint, I think we can start Darnold. I feel pretty good about that. I think I'm comfortable with both Seattle running backs right now. They've both had some big moments, and like for Kenneth Walker, he has the big game last week, but Charbonnet has outsnapped him, I think, in the first couple of weeks this season. So I think both of them are going to have their options. JSN is at this point a no-brainer start. And Cooper Kupp, I think you can feel comfortable putting him in there. For the Saints, it's Kamara, and that's probably it. Like, I guess Olave, too, if we have him, get what you can out of it. But like, even Shaheed, I have to start him in the Vampire League this week, but I would try to not with Shaheed on the New Orleans Saints. Let's go to a key division matchup early in the season. Arizona taking on the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco favored by 2.5 points. Total is at 44.5. This is a really interesting matchup. I'm for those either watching this after the fact or listening in podcast form on Couch Potato Diary. We're taping this on Thursday. Adam Schefter tweeted out just a few moments ago, if we could pull it up, for the second straight day, the 49ers listed Brock Purdy as a limited participant in practice due to his toe and left shoulder injuries. So I'm not optimistic that even if he plays, he is going to be at the fullest extent of his capabilities. And so while Colin Cowherd can get all hot and bothered about Kyle Shanahan getting a lot out of Brock Purdy this week, out of Mac Jones last week, I feel like Arizona does provide a little bit more resistance than New Orleans does. And that scoreline against Carolina would look a whole lot better if they just kept the foot on the gas the whole time. I like Arizona in this spot. Kyler Murray is Kyler, and it can get a little bit wonky at times, but Marvin Harrison Jr. feels like he's taken a step forward. I like both running backs in Carolina or with the Cardinals, and obviously McBride is one of the better tight ends in the league. And then on the defensive side, when San Francisco has the ball, yes, Christian McCaffrey's the best player in this game, and Pearsall I think is going to have some pretty big moments as well. But I think in those big crunch time moments when it is an obvious passing down, I think some of the strong pass rushers that Arizona has been able to accumulate over the last couple of years are going to cause some problems for Mac Jones or for a limited Brock Purdy and be able to kind of blow some of these plays up. So I think it's going to be a good one, but I think Arizona takes this. I like the Cardinals at +2.5, and I will take the under at 44.5 on this one as well. That is a game that we're taking an under on. This next one, not a chance. The Dallas Cowboys taking on the Chicago Bears. This is the one that I am, from a fantasy standpoint, from an everything standpoint, I am just salivating over the thought of this game. I think this game is going to be absolute insanity. You look at the games that Dallas has been in so far, and again, last week, it is a wild shootout. Now, it took to the fourth quarter to get there, but it was a wild shootout at the end with Dallas really stretching the field and making some big plays. And you look at week one, that game was a shootout right up until we had an hour and a half delay in the first game of the year. It's a weird one, right? But I think when you look at this, Dallas's offense has been able to put a lot together. The run game has been so much stronger than people are expecting. And I think Dak's looked good. I've liked a lot of what Dak has been able to do so far this year through the air. CeeDee Lamb is a stud. I remain skeptical on Pickens, but they have enough other, like Turpin and Tolbert and those guys, that they can put a lot of points on the board pretty quickly against Chicago. And the Bears defense, I'm still hoping that there is a step forward for this group this year. I thought they were kind of underrated a season ago. And week one, I thought they looked all right until J.J. McCarthy kind of drove it down their throat. But week two, Detroit kind of just took it to them, right? So big concerns there for Chicago. Really made me kind of take a step back and wonder what is actually happening with this defense. And Dallas, I think, can do the same thing to them. Defensively, the Cowboys had trouble shutting down the Giants, and I think the Bears' offense is better than the Giants' is. And so I think you give Ben Johnson the weapons that he has going up against a Dallas team that has barely been able to stop the run this season and has not been able to defend the pass a lick. I think this is going to be a good night for Chicago's passing attack. So it really is going to come down to who can get enough stops on defense to kind of keep this one close. I do think Dallas gets there. I just think that their offense is a slight touch above what Chicago can do. Both defenses, it's kind of a wash right now. I do like the coaching on Chicago a little bit better, but I just think Dallas right now is a better football team. So I like them -1.5. And the other play this week is DeAndre Swift over 57.5 rushing yards. I've really liked what he has done so far. Nothing from Monangai or Roschon Johnson has knocked me away from that. So I like what this team can do with DeAndre Swift at running back. So I'm going over 57.5 for that one. Looking at this from a fantasy standpoint, it's everybody. Dak, we're starting. Williams, we're starting. Honestly, I'd be fine if you threw Miles Sanders in there. CD, obviously. Pickens, begrudgingly. I've picked up Turpin in a couple of like Turpin, Tolbert, those guys in deeper leagues, we're throwing them in there. Ferguson, yeah, probably not Dallas's defense, but Brandon Aubrey. There was Dominique Foxworth's show this week. They were talking about like would a 4th-round pick for him be crazy, and so some were saying San Francisco would give up a first and it wouldn't seem crazy. So we're putting Bobry in the lineup this week, as my wife called him when she had him last year in the Vampire League. She needs a win this week. But yeah, either way. On the Chicago side, I Caleb Williams, I think we can confidently start this week. I like DeAndre Swift rolling there at running back. Receivers, Roma Dunze feels like he's getting into stud territory, and I still think DJ Moore is a really good running back. So we will see there that the tight end situation has still been a little bit murky this year, but I think there's going to be enough that if you got those guys and we can roll with them and everybody's going to eat in this matchup. It feels very, very good there. The Smitty is back. 2-quarterback super flex league. Quarterbacks are Purdy's, Daniels, Browning, and Jones, and Rattler. Running backs are Henderson, Monty, Connors, and Brian Robinson Jr. Someone needs a replacement for Burrow. Would you trade Browning and Monty for Odunze and Mason? It would insult the Odunze owner how quickly I would do that trade. Yes, I would. I think like Browning, I understand he has the weapons to throw to, and you have the sneakiest of stacks with Browning and T. Higgins there. But when I look at that, like I don't think he's that good. You know, and so again, I think that the whole offense in general is going to have some issues. So while this does leave you a little bit lacking, especially this week, but we'll see about Purdy's status. But I still think like you are getting Roma Dunze, which is a gigantic move. I think for this week, he's going to have a monster week, but I think that he has shown that he's leveled up in the Bears passing attack. And so I think that he is going to have a big rest of the year. And Mason, even when Aaron Jones comes back, Mason's still going to have a lot of opportunities in that Vikings backfield. And for now, like looking at it, I guess you have Connors there too, but like he is an automatic, no doubt start for you for the next few weeks while Aaron Jones is out. So I think if you can turn this Burrow situation and turn Browning and Montgomery into a Dunze and Mason, I think you have to lock that in. I think that's a fantastic move there, the Smitty. I think you feel very, very good about that trade that could be coming your way. So yes, absolutely do that one with a smile on your face and a tear in your eye. Make that trade 100% of the time. Another fantasy football question from JCup4 on Twitch. 12-man, half-point PPR. God, I gotta stop doing that. But half PPR. 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and 2 flex. We have May, Chase, Brown, Pollard, Lamb, JSN, Bowers, Odunze, JCM, Packers kicker, Packers defense, bench, Caleb Williams, Samson, Tootin, Golden, and Juwan Johnson. Thoughts? It's a good team, right? And like this week, I kind of said I'm not all the way in on the Patriots overall, but I think actually could have a decent week with Drake May. I worry about all the weapons that they have there in general, but May is a fine choice. And when you look at the rest of your team, like Chase and Brown are 2 of the more talented receivers. I know that hasn't really paid off yet in terms of fantasy points for Brown, but I think that's coming. Pollard... Chase Brown. I'm sorry, I read that as Chase, Brown. Chase Brown is very solid at running back, and I still think he's gonna take a slight step back because of no Burrow and just the overall quality of that offense falling behind, but I think he's going to be strong. Pollard, I said it in the preview before, I think he could be in for a bit of a tougher week, but overall, like it's a good squad. I think this week you got to go Caleb against the Dallas defense. I feel like that game has shootout written all over it. So I like Caleb there in that spot against Dallas rather than May against Pittsburgh. Although, like we said, like Pittsburgh's defense has given up some points in the first couple of weeks, but so is Dallas. And Caleb, I think, just has better weapons to throw to. So I'd probably go Caleb in that spot. And then the other question you're asking is Juwan or Bowers this week. Raiders taking on the Washington Commanders, while Juwan Johnson and the Saints are playing Seattle. I have real worries about Seattle, what their defense is going to do to New Orleans. So Johnson, he's getting a ton of volume, and excellent on you for making that play and getting him in your on your roster. But I think Bowers is still the play. Washington's defense is good, but I don't think it's great, and I don't think it's to the point where they're going to be able to take out one of the top tight ends in the league. So while I understand the question, I think for this week, the matchup for Johnson is so difficult that Bowers probably is the play here. But again, really, really solid squad that you got there, J-Cup for. So excellent work there. And yeah, waiver wire merchant. Juwan Johnson, he was one of the lock waiver wire picks that we had after week 1. It's like this guy's going to get a lot of work in New Orleans because there's just not a whole lot there for that team to work with. And one thing we know is that young quarterbacks love throwing to their tight ends. And Spencer Rattler certainly has shown that over the last couple of weeks. Zwixley on Twitch is saying, you think I should trade Worthy and Swift for Devontae? God, that's an interesting question because Worthy, a little banged up. That'll happen when Mr. Taylor Swift runs right through you. Man, I like Swift a lot. I feel like he has had a lot of things opened up in the passing attack and the running attack there in Chicago. But Devontae, that looks legit right now. He looks like a pretty solid option right now and looks like a really solid upgrade over Worthy. So if we got the running backs that we can trade Swift away and still be all right in that spot, I think that that's a really good job of taking advantage of some of the added value that Swift has provided coming out of the draft, a little bit of name value with Worthy, and turning that into a very, very solid piece in Devontae Adams. So I would probably make that move. Zwixley, looking at a roster decision that we had earlier, who should I trade, or should I trade Worthy and Swift for Devontae? Our running backs are Genty, Swift, Dobbins, Judkins, and Pacheco. Yes, then I would do that. It does leave us the slightest bit shorthanded at running back, but if Genty progresses in the way that I think he's going to in the Chip Kelly offense with the Raiders, then I think that you're going to feel very good about where that running back room is at in a few weeks. Judkins, who knows what's going to happen there. I'm still going to hold out hope that as Kansas City's offense gets healthier and less suspended, that the things are going to open up for Pacheco a little bit more as the year goes on. So I think our running back room is strong enough that we feel good about that move. All right, we have a couple game previews left. We're going to go to prime time. It is the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the New York Giants. It is a primetime game, so I may as well tell you guys that you can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Follow me for updates on the show, content from the show, and just overall hilarity that can come from me. All right, Sunday night. Kansas City taking on the Giants. The Chiefs are favored by 6.5 points with the total sitting at 45.5. This is a must win for Kansas City. Week 1, tough matchup. We're on another continent taking on a Chargers team that everyone has kind of figured out is really good. That's a loss. Okay, whatever. Week 2, we're playing the defending Super Bowl champions. All right, we can lose that one. Week 3 against the Giants. This is desperation. You cannot lose this game. It is fire alarms going off all over the place, and now 2 first-round picks are getting traded for Tyreek Hill if the Chiefs lose this game. Mahomes knows that. Andy Reid knows that. Travis Kelce knows that. This defense knows that. I'm expecting the best game of the year from these guys. I said in the lead up to the year that the Chiefs' offense is going to be improved. Obviously, I did not anticipate some friendly fire taking out Xavier Worthy for a bit, and we are, after this one, halfway done with the Rashee Rice suspension. So I think better days are ahead for this team. But for now, this is a must-win game, and I think they are going to treat it as such. The concern I have when Kansas City has the ball is this offensive line hasn't looked improved in the way that we thought it was going to be after they addressed that in the draft this offseason. And this is a really good defensive front for the New York Giants. I get it hasn't looked like it at times, but they faced a couple pretty good offenses. Not Mahomes good, but this is an offensive line that the Giants could exploit. So I think this is an interesting matchup to see what this Chiefs offensive line really can be about. On the defensive side, the Chiefs are an elite unit, taking on the Giants, who struggled in week 1 against a good, not great defense and thrived last week against a bad defense. So concerns are there, obviously, on the Giants side. I think this is going to be another tough one for them this week. I just think the pressure that the Chiefs can get with their front four is going to be a problem against this offensive line. And then you have a number of high-level players being able to drop back off into coverage. I think they're going to have a really, really fun time dealing with Russell Wilson this week. So I like the Chiefs here in this spot. I like them minus the 6.5. The other, I actually have bonus pick this week. We got Giants under 19.5, and I'm going to take the full game under at 45.5. I think that the Giants pass rush is going to be enough that it's going to keep this from being an absolute runaway blowout for the Chiefs, but I don't think the Giants offense is going to do their part in getting this game to 46 points. So I like the Chiefs here, I like the under, and I like the team under on the Giants. From a fantasy standpoint, it's weird to say, it's tough to trust Mahomes right now. And I think he's playing great. It's a good pass rush that he's going to be facing. He has no weapons to throw to. I would have some concerns about playing Patrick Mahomes this week. I think we have to wait and see on both running backs, Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. Hollywood Brown, we've had a few questions in the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat as well, asking about where those guys are on just in terms of fantasy output. Sorry, Hollywood Brown, where he kind of stacks up on a few things. But it's probably a no for me. Kelsey feels like the only one that you kind of gotta in this entire game, I guess, aside from Malik Neighbors. We're starting Malik Neighbors, but we're not starting Russ. Neither are the running backs. Wan'Dale Robinson, we had him as a waiver wire pickup this week, and if you are desperate at wide receiver or in a deeper league, I think that there could be some room there for him to play and do well, but it's going to be a slog, I think, for the Giants on offense. One more game to preview, and it is a wild one on Monday Night Football. Two of the best teams in the league go at it on prime time as the Detroit Lions head into Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens are favored by 4.5 points. The total is at 53.5. Lamar Jackson has been absurd this year. This offense is firing on all cylinders, which makes the decision to punt on 4th and 3 in a close ball game in week number 1 against the Buffalo Bills all the more perplexing. But I digress. This offense is elite. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it. Lamar Jackson is fantastic. There will be some podcasts and some YouTube channels and some Twitch and Kick streams that will tell you that Lamar Jackson overrated, not a passer, blah, 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 blah. That ain't going to be this one. Lamar Jackson is elite. He is a weapon when it comes to running the football, and his passing game has improved, I think, significantly. And I think one of the sneaky things at the start of the year is Zay Flowers has taken a step, man. Zay Flowers looks good. Bateman looks like he's kind of a viable option. If the tight end could catch the gosh darn ball, then this team looks really scary. And obviously Derrick Henry is a tank as a human being. Against a Detroit defense that has had some problems for the first couple of weeks, right? Like, they got picked apart by Green Bay. And yes, they were able to blow out the Lions. They still get up 21 to the Lions. To the Bears. So I don't think that this is going to be a defense that is going to slow down what Baltimore is doing at all. On the flip side of it, Detroit obviously getting back on track last week with the blowout win over the Bears and answering a lot of questions. But I think when you look at the interior of this defense for the Lions and what they are able to do with a skilled group, it feels weird to call, but at the linebacking spot anyway, with Smith, and then Kyle Hamilton, who is just kind of everywhere and everything all at once. I think that the issues on the offensive line that the Lions kind of had exposed for them in week 1 could come back to haunt them in this game. The Bears don't have those kind of pass rushers that the Ravens can throw at them, nor do they have the weapons at the second level that Baltimore has. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a coming back down to earth, but I think this is going to be another shootout. I think this is going to be a bit of a crazy one. Again, I just like Baltimore's defense to get, again, enough stops in this one to give them the win. So I like Baltimore minus 4.5. I like the over in this one at 53.5. It's the biggest total of the week. Maybe it is a little bit of a lame dude on YouTube with a big beard pick, but I like the over here. I don't know where all the stops are going to be coming from. And honestly, even if the absolute biggest part of what I just broke down with the Baltimore defense comes true on the Detroit offensive line, Baltimore might get close to 53 on their own. So Detroit this isn't going to be like the Giants against Kansas City, where I worry that the Giants aren't going to hold their own to get us to 45. Baltimore's going to do enough, and the Lions are going to get us a few points here anyway, so I like the over there. And then from a fantasy spot, we're starting everybody, right? Like, Lamar, obviously. Henry, I can't imagine you would never. Zay Flowers, I think we start. Even deeper leagues, Rashad Bateman is a go. And we've had a couple here. I like Kincaid over Mark Andrews. We had that a couple days ago. But we've had a couple for Andrews here today. And I've liked Andrews more than most at the tight end spot. So he is a play for us for sure. Even Nuke Hopkins, if you're in a deeper league, the guy's he was a waiver wire pickup for us this week. If you've had some injury problems there, I don't know which ones they would be, but if you've had some injury problems at receiver, I think Hopkins is an opportunity. They like him in the red zone quite a bit, so there's some chances for him to score as well. On the Detroit side, I think you can start Goff pretty confidently. I think I'd be okay with that. Obviously, Gibbs, probably Montgomery as well. There's never a world where you're not starting Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think Jamison Williams gets his as well, and Laporta. So, big days had for all in the fantasy football world for this game. Purple Ninja 1919 on YouTube. What is the best flex this week? Genty, Shakir, or JMO? And last question, Hannon or Andrews? I'm going to need a bit more clarification on who Hannon is. Sorry about that. I'm sure I could pick that up quicker, but just my brain's not firing there right now. But on the flex question, Genty, Shakir, or JMO? Genty against Washington. Shakir, Buffalo tonight against the Miami Dolphins, and JMO for Detroit against the Baltimore Ravens. I think in that spot, while I have been kind of preaching patience with Genty, and I said I can't imagine you have more better options, I do think because of how insane that Lions-Ravens game could be, I think you have to go with Jamison Williams, in that spot. I just think that's going to be a game that gets a little bit out of control. And a little bit out of hand. And I think Williams kind of thrives in those games. Like, you think back to week 1 and you see Keon Coleman open down the field, and you can basically just Photoshop Jamison Williams' jersey and it makes sense, right? So I think Williams has some pretty good games, or some pretty good moments in this week on Monday night against the Baltimore Ravens. So he would be my pick in that spot. And then Fannin or Andrews, I am not a big Andrews guy, but I think it's a really tough matchup for Fannin this week. And like I just said, I think points are going to be everywhere. It's the highest point total of the week from Vegas for Detroit against Baltimore. So I would go with Andrews in that spot. I like that play there. If it doesn't work this week for Andrews, we've had a few questions about him throughout the week. If it doesn't work for him this week, it's a problem. It's a big problem. And we're getting into maybe you can just drop him territory. But for now, we're rolling with Andrews on that one. So those would be the plays there. So there we go. Breaking down every game from the NFL.